Hey friends, welcome back to the Guitar Max channel. Okay, so at the end of last year, I picked up this Jackson Rhoads JS32T on sale, brand new, for $220. Now, even if you pay the full $279 price, that is still a screamin' good deal, considering how well this guitar plays, sounds, and of course looks. Jackson has really cornered the market in the past few years for low budget metal guitars. And it really begs the question, I mean, what more do you need to play metal? Now let's go over the specs here, but honestly there's not that much to go over because it's a very simple guitar. So this is of course a Rhoads V, right? So it's the asymmetrical offset V body shape. Now this is a mahogany body, and all they've done is put a light stain on the mahogany. So there's no paint, no real finish to speak of aside from the oil stain. Controls wise, it's very simple. There's a three-way toggle switch, a single volume and a single tone. This is a string through body, right? You can see the string ferrules on the back of the body there. And of course it's a bolt-on neck. Now the neck is maple, right? And then it's an amaranth fretboard with 24 jumbo frets. Now I really think the neck is kind of the highlight, not just of this guitar, but of the Jackson JS32 series guitars in general, because these necks are really thin, really comfortable, really shred friendly, and then they've got these big jumbo frets on them. I really think that this is one of the best necks you can get on a guitar that's under $300, just in general. Now, the hardware is generic stuff, and we've got the Jackson branded humbuckers on here, and then we've got some cool little extra touches, of course, like the shark fin inlays that Jackson guitars are known for. And you might think, well, that's not a big deal. I mean, most Jackson guitars have those, right? But the lower budget Jackson guitars didn't used to have those, a few years ago. It wasn't really until the JS32 series where they started putting those shark fin inlays on the fretboard. Before that, they were just using like dot inlays and that kind of stuff. So we've got the cool inlays, and then to really finish it off, we've got a nice white binding that goes up the sides of the fretboard and around the headstock. Now, let me take a second. I'm going to set this down here because I actually own two other of the JS32 or JS series Jackson guitar, Rhoads V's, right? I've got this one right here, which I've done sort of a patriotic Eddie Van Halen sort of mod on here, right, for a project I'm working on, which hopefully you'll see at some point in the future. But this guitar, this is a JS32 series Rhoads V with a Floyd in the gloss white, and I've modified just about everything on this guitar. The bridge, the pickups, even the whole wiring setup. Oh, and the nut. Done a lot of mods to this guitar, and this guitar plays and sounds awesome. And then I've got another one here actually that I got more recently, and I did a video on this I think a couple of months ago, and I got this one here. And I did a video about this. I was saying like, oh, this is the guitar that almost got away, because when these were new you could buy these for like $250, $300 at Guitar Center, and I was always like, oh yeah, I'll get one at some point because they look really cool. Then of course I waited too long and they all sold and you couldn't get one anymore. So actually, I think I ended up paying a little bit more than the original price for a used one when I finally found one. And this one also, I need to do an updated video on this, but I have gone ahead and replaced the bridge in this one as well. But of course this has, the red and the reverse headstock, also with 24 frets. Okay, so you might be thinking like, well, Max, those other two, you updated the bridge, or you upgraded the bridge on both of those, right? So what about this one? Well, fortunately, this is a much simpler guitar. It doesn't have the locking nut. It doesn't have any sort of Floyd Rose style bridge on it. It's just a simple string through body setup. And that massively simplifies the guitar. And I think for a budget guitar, that is much better, because cheap and simple can work, but cheap and complicated is almost always a disaster. And just to be clear, when I say cheap, I mean affordable. I mean, for what this is, the quality is actually very, very good. And I love the fact that there are things about this guitar which they could have left off and it would still be a good value. But the fact that they have like gold hardware and the gold and the black look really good together, and then you've got the shark fin inlays and the binding. They could have had dot inlays, they could have had no binding, right? The guitar would have played the same and it still would have been a good value. It still would have been a good budget guitar, but it wouldn't have been quite as cool. And look, if you're a metal guitar player and you're rocking out on stage, you want a guitar that just the looks alone captures people's attention, of course, and then you add your incredible guitar skills to that, and the combination is irresistible. Okay guys, but let's go ahead and get into the demo so you guys can hear how these pickups sound, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the playability of the guitar and how the neck feels. And also, I had to do a little bit of fretwork on this guitar, and I want to tell you about that later as well after we do the demo. So I'll go ahead and plug this in. We'll get some nice high gain tones and we can listen to how it sounds. But real quick guys, as always, if you enjoy videos like this, checking out cool, affordable guitars, and also staying up on all the latest news in the guitar universe, and you have not already subscribed, please consider subscribing right now. Okay, let's go ahead and plug this in and listen to how it sounds. Okay guys, so let's talk about the sound of this guitar and these pickups in particular, and then I want to talk a little bit about the playability. So first of all, for your basic go-to metal tones, these pickups are perfectly adequate. And by that I mean they have a very just sort of neutral kind of sound to them. I think probably the good point about the pickups is that harmonics are very easy with these pickups. They have a very bright high end to them. And they still have a good low end too. But I would say the weakness of these pickups is sometimes that high end can be a little overpowering, and so it, you know, depending on how you have the amplifier set up, you can end up with a tone which is a little bit harsh. So for that reason, I think these pickups are paired well with amplifiers that have darker sounding tones. But honestly, I'm kind of nitpicking, and for a budget guitar like this, under 300 bucks, these pickups are great. Now, the playability is the other big thing I want to talk about with this guitar, because again, guys, these necks, so good. I mean, these necks, they are thin, very flat. You've got the compound radius fretboard on here, so it goes from kind of round up down here by the headstock to where it flattens out as you get higher up the neck, so it gets better for bending and lead work as you go up here. Now, I will say one thing. Compared to the other two guitars that I have, the finish on this neck feels a little bit different. This one doesn't feel quite as smooth. I mean, none of them are polished, right? They all have these sort of matte finish necks, which I love. But this one feels a little bit more matte, or a little bit more satin, if you will, compared to the other ones. And so I think, you know, if I just ran like a rag up and down this, you know, 100 times or something, right, it would make it a little bit slicker without it being glossy or anything like that. So I do notice a slight difference just in the finish between this guitar and the other JS32 series guitars that I have. But the profile and the overall shape of the neck is exactly the same, and the profile is awesome. It's like a slim D shape. It's a great shred guitar shaped neck. Now let's talk about the frets. So as far as the fret size, they're excellent. Nice big extra jumbo frets on this neck, and 24 frets, which I love. But if I'm being totally honest, when I first got this guitar, there were a few sharp fret ends, and so I did my standard sanding sponge trick, where you take one of these sanding sponges, which is usually used for like sanding, like refinishing furniture and that kind of stuff. And so it's like a sanding block, but it's squishy, and so you can run it up and down the corner of the fretboard, and it wraps around, the material sort of wraps around the corners of the frets just a little bit, and it takes off all of those little sharp ends there. So I did that, which takes all of like 2 or 3 minutes to do, and I haven't had any issues since then. The only other thing I had, and this is honestly rare for one of these necks, is the first fret was a little bit high, actually. And so when I was playing down like on the first fret, or like open chords or something where you have a note on the first fret, I was getting some buzzing from that. And so I actually did have to take the strings off and use a file and actually bring down the first fret just a little bit. But I should mention that's pretty rare, and I've never had that issue on any of my other JS32 series guitars. So yes, I mean, there were a few things I had to do to kind of clean this up a little bit. And yes, of course, you could do some upgrades to this guitar. You could put in new pickups, maybe new tuners or something like that, although I haven't had any tuning issues with this guitar. You could do some upgrades, but do you really have to? I mean, out of the box, you can play some sick metal riffs with this guitar, no problem. Now, on the topic of mods and upgrades, there's a guy on this website called YouTube, maybe you've heard of it. Anyway, there's a guy with a YouTube channel called Bedroom Guitar Hero, and he did a really cool refinish job on a JS32 series Jackson Warrior. And the Warrior is one of my favorite body shapes, and he took one of these same ones, right, where it's the mahogany body with just the stain on it, and then he refinished it, and it came out really, really cool. It's definitely something to check out. I'm going to put a link for that video, for his video, down in the video description below, and you can see how great you can make one of these budget Jackson guitars look. Okay guys, and the last thing, I mean, I already told you the price at the beginning of the video, but if $279 is still too much cash for you, there are a lot of these guitars around, and they're very easy to find on the used market, where just about any day of the week you can find one of these guitars for under $200 if you want to save even more money. Okay guys, now who else out there watching this video has one of these guitars or one of the other JS32T guitars, you know, which have this same body, right, with this finish on it, because I think they made the King V and they definitely made the Warrior all in this same style like this. So who else out there has one of those guitars, and what do you think of it? Let us know down in the comments section below. Okay guys, that is it. As always, there's going to be links down in the video description below for everything I was talking about. I'll put a link down there for that other guy's video, as well as a link where you can get this guitar and also the amp I was using, which is the Fender GTX 100, and all of my social media and instructional programs and blah, blah, blah. Thanks a ton for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you very soon.